Hey folks, this is Rhykker, and Blizzard just revealed what is probably going to be the best season of Diablo 4 yet. Season 7 is going to be the season of witchcraft. If you like Season 2, this seems to be building upon that and more. So we just had the Campfire chat for patch 2.1, and I didn't expect it, but we got the reveal of Season 7 at the same time. When PTR starts on December 3rd, we're actually going to be able to test the new season. This is going to be a first. Been able to test a season theme before launch. Exact patch notes on 2.1 will be available next Wednesday, but in this video we're going to go over now some of the details that they shared during their Campfire. But before we move on, a quick word from this video's sponsor, Incogni. You ever wonder how you get spam calls, texts, and emails? It's because thousands of companies are collecting, aggregating, and trading your personal data, and it's all legal. However, you have the right to demand that a data broker deletes whatever personal info they have about you. The thing is, it's just pretty dang hard to track down and contact all the companies to make that request yourself. And that's where Incogni comes in. It's a service that does all that for you. It reaches out to data brokers on your behalf, requests your data be removed, and deals with any pushback they may give. And you'd be surprised at how much of your personal information may be out there. Not just your full name, your email, and your phone number, but also things like your employment history, your home address, your relatives, maybe even your social security number. Here's my dashboard. You can see that I've got 14 requests left in progress, and 76 have been completed. I've been using Incogni for over a year now, after I'd started getting a bunch of spam texts. I don't know how it started. I don't know if it was because I signed up for some store's loyalty card or because of a big data breach. LinkedIn, for instance, has repeatedly had data of hundreds of millions of its users scraped and sold on the dark web. For anyone who does a lot of online shopping, that's a ton of opportunity for your info to get out there and spread around. But after I started using Incogni, those spam messages became drastically reduced. So take back your data, stop the spam, go to incogni.com/Rhykker and use code Rhykker to get an exclusive offer of 60% off. That's incogni.com/RHYKKER and use code Rhykker or click the link in the description below to take your personal data off the market. So first we're going to talk about the general balance updates. Every class is getting some changes. Barbarian's getting some buffs to various skills and passives. They seem like they're pretty small in nature, like maybe 15% buffs. But there's some love given to Earthquake builds, more damage and better usability, and they heavily alluded to there being some kind of synergy between Hammer of the Ancients and Earthquakes, that we're going to be able to combine these two into some kind of cool new build on the PTR. For Sorcerer, they highlighted the problem that the Sorcerers had pretty much from day one, is that all Sorcerers basically felt obligated to dip into burning damage via the Firebolt enchantment. Basically, the Sorcerer can build itself in such a way that it deals additional damage to burning enemies, and the easiest way to apply burning is to take the Firebolt enchantment. So pretty much any build, if it didn't have a way to apply burning, would just dip into Firebolt to apply that burning. And this was a boring meta, so they have reworked the Firebolt enchantment. It no longer applies burning. Alright? That's basically a nerf to sorcerers altogether. And then they also changed some of the things that would give buffs to burning enemies to not do that anymore. So kind of also a nerf. Now they've replaced this with things that give other damage buffs under different conditions. So hopefully when we actually get the patch notes, when we actually get to put these builds together, it won't be in practice a nerf to sorcerers, but first impressions is like, oh, well, you're just taking away our source of burning damage, extra burning damage to enemies. That's, bringing down the sorcerer's power level pretty much across the board. But again, they are adding in and readjusting other things to bring back damage buffs in different ways. So the spirit of this really seems to be that they don't want us to have to be pigeonholed into running these burning builds, and then we can dip into other ways of gaining damage buffs. They're making some changes to Ball Lightning that are looking pretty good. First off, a lot of the Ball Lightning meta revolved around having to set up specific trigger conditions in order to maximize your damage buffs. They're simplifying those. They're making it easier to gain the buffs so that we can have more variety in how we're building Ball Lightning. They're giving the Sorcerer 2 new uniques, and for the first time we are getting unique focuses. So either you have one or the other. They're both Ball Lightning related. So the one that you pick is going to determine how Ball Lightning plays. They're completely changing the gravitational aspect, and they're taking that power and now putting it onto one of the uniques. That's going to make Ball Lightning revolve around you. So that is now the build changing, the skill changing unique item And it also allows you to cast Ball Lightning while moving. So this will be the high mobility version of Ball Lightning. Then the other unique also changes how ball lightning works, and they described it now basically operating like a bowling ball. So both of these uniques are going to change the base behavior of ball lightning. Then for the druid, big focus on werewolves. Also updates to poison builds. They just recognized that pure werewolf just wasn't good enough, so they really want to make that viable. So they're updating shred, they're giving updates to the aspects that are going to support werewolf playstyles. Innate blood howl previously served as a mana potion basically. Now it additionally is going to buff your werewolf damage. Specifically, it buffs your werewolf damage by 25% until you swap out of werewolf form. So you can't just use it to dip into a 25% damage buff. You're going to have to stay in werewolf form. Aspect of the Blurred Beast has been reworked that you're going to zoop across the map to strike an enemy, and the further you travel, you get additional hits. So it adds in some positional gameplay. I'm not sure how that's going to work in practice, but it looks super cool. Then they got a new aspect of the Wolf's Rain, which makes it so that when you cast Hurricane, it also spawns mini hurricanes on any wolves you have. And the more wolves you have, the more buffs you get. So it's really funny. You're just going to be walking around with a bunch of little hurricanes around you. Great for companion builds. And then lastly, they're changing Boulder such that Savage Boulder will now do poison damage. Kind of weird, but we'll see how that works. Then for Rogue, the big changes are coming to Shadow Clone. They just recognized Shadow Clone was not operating as people expected or hoped, that, you know, you're doing X damage and your Shadow Clone is just doing like orders of magnitude less damage than you, because it's not proccing and triggering all your various buffs, your lucky hit effects and all that. So they've basically just completely redone Shadow Clone, that it's going to now be literally a duplicate of you. It's going to be able to trigger your lucky hit effects. It's going to be able to trigger your legendary aspect effects. So, you know, if the legendary aspect triggers on a certain effect, your Shadow Clone can trigger it for you and you gain the buff for it. Rogues are getting a new pair of unique boots that are making all mobility skills now always have Shadow Imbue, so this is big for Shadow Step builds. They're also completely changing how Caltrops work. Well, completely changing. Right now, Caltrops, you toss Caltrops and you leap backwards. And this was like a really high skill, in my opinion. I would use it on the rogue for positioning purposes, or anytime I would use Caltrops, because I know that I'd be leaping backwards. If I'd be, you know, running through a map, I would toss Caltrops behind me so that I would leap backwards to move forwards in the direction that I wanted to go. And so, like, you know, when you have a mobility kit for a rogue, right, you're like using your different mobility powers, and Caltrops is always like, okay, that one works backwards, so I got to make sure I'm aiming in the opposite direction of where I want to go. And admittedly, the usability was kind of frustrating and annoying and difficult, just outright difficult. And they're just removing the leap backwards now. I think this is a big win for a lot of people, because for the most part, that was just... it led to people jumping into places they didn't want to jump. But I imagine for like the pro players who would be able to pull off the correct, consistently pull off the right jump in the direction that you want to go to use Caltrops as that extra mobility skill, I think that is losing something a bit. Maybe keeping it as an option, maybe as one of the upgrade options, or something, maybe an aspect or something that adds that back in, unless no one's going to miss it. If no one's going to miss it, then who cares, I guess. For Necromancer, they're improving itemization and synergies regarding overpower. So a big rework to Rathma's Vigor key passive to allow you to benefit from big chunks of overpower damage now. Necros are also getting 2 new unique pants. It seems in general what they wanted to do was add uniques that are competing for the same slot, so that you can't just stack them all. You have to make a choice. Do I want, you know, especially when these uniques are buffing the same skill, you have to make a decision. Do I want this skill altering effect or this other one? You cannot get both. So in this case, both of the new uniques are for Blood Wave. One of them makes it such that instead of shooting one Blood Wave out forward away from you, you cast 2 blood waves that converge on you, so huge change to how the skill works. And the other one makes it that at the end of the blood wave, enemies hit by that end of the blood wave are trapped in a bone prison, and it also basically turns your bone spears into blood spears, or should I say blood lances from D3, and you can actually get additional blood spear casts by costing you life to consume corpses to launch those extra blood spears. Seems pretty cool. Then for the Spiritborn, they are fixing all the various issues that were causing the bugs that were making the Spiritborn 1 million times stronger than other classes. So Spiritborn ought to be brought back. We'll see. We'll see if it works out. We'll find out when the PTR launches, but Spiritborn ought to be brought down to now a reasonable power level. I still suspect they're going to be the strongest class, but their power will be now reasonable. They're also buffing Centipede and Razor Wings. We're getting a huge nerf, however, to the Rod of Kepelepi. Its legendary power previously went up to 3%. Now it's down to 0.5% at its max. And they threw in that overall, their objective isn't to have every class speed clearing greater of 150. That where other classes are presently in Season 6 is more along the lines of where they want everyone's power level to be. That it shouldn't just be, oh, let's buff every class to be smashing 150. I understand that's unpopular with a lot of people. For myself personally, I agree with this decision. Over time, with power creep, because every season we're going to get some small amount of power creep. Over time, over the years, we're going to creep higher and higher in pits until eventually one day in the future we will be doing the 150s. But if we're already doing 150s now, then we just have nowhere to go other than to add Torment 38 and pit level 365, and everything just loses all meaning at that point. So Spiritborn getting some new items to support Razor Wings, getting some reworks of some of those other rings that none of us use to be better. Then in general, across all classes, huge change to ultimates where, so in case you're not aware, with Season 6, ultimates can now rank up to 5. In the past, you can only put 1 rank into an ultimate. Well, now in patch 2.1, if you hit 5 ranks, you're going to unlock some additional effect. And looking at a couple of them, it looks like their power is tantamount to a legendary aspect. And this is whether you get those 5 ranks via actually putting in the skill points or reaching it through something else that buffs your skill ranks. So for instance, they're adding an aspect that basically gives you 4 additional ranks into your ultimate skills. So you just put in 1 point and you automatically get 5 if you take that aspect. Of course, that's coming at the cost of an aspect. So what do you value more, those 4 skill points or the aspect? You know, you got choices to make. There's also more support for ultimate damage in the skill tree, in the Paragon board. So overall, we're just seeing more and more with Season 6 and now Season 7, more encouragement to use ultimates, because pre-Vessel of Hatred ults were not used by most builds, and we're going to be seeing them worked in more and more and more. We're also going to be getting a number of rune word updates with 2.1. All invocation runes will now have overflow effects. So for those who don't know, the way runes work is basically you have your trigger rune and your effect rune. Your trigger rune will generate some amount of resource that is then consumed with the effect rune. And so what happens if you have more of that resource than the effect rune consumes? Well, you can consume via overflow all of the generated resource to do something extra. And they really wanted to focus in on having those extra powerful moments with overflow. We're also getting 3 new runes. One is summon related. One lets you store up offering over time. Offering is that rune word resource. So just by existing, you are building up a potential offering. So you don't actually have the offering. You're building up a cache of offering, and then you will get all that cache of offering whenever you cast a non-basic skill. So think of it like investments. When you have your money invested, you don't have access to it, so the money is going up, but then when you withdraw your investment, then you can spend the money. You withdraw the investment by casting a non-basic skill. Then they gave us a 3rd new rune, which is an invocation rune, that's an effect rune, which triggers the druid's lightning bolt. So I think it's great that we're getting new runes. I think it's to be expected. New runes over time, right? We're getting more options, more rune words to potentially build. Every new rune has a ripple effect because every rune could be combined with every other existing rune, right? Rune storage, though. We need to find some kind of rune storage solution. Now, I like the idea of the Path of Exile style stash tabs where you have, imagine they just give us an extra stash tab and the only thing that stash tab could do is hold runes. And so it has a specific fixed slot for every rune that exists. Every time they add a new rune, they can add a new slot for it. So let's say you have, 36 of one rune, then all 36 are going to go into that one slot. So there is one slot in that stash tab for every rune that exists. So whenever you need to use a rune, you can pull it out of that stash tab. Because I don't know about you folks, right now we do have like that rune inventory. on our character, but that's not big enough to hold every rune. There's a few more runes than there are slots for us to hold, so some of our runes are held there, some of them are in the stash. It's just a big nightmare. Okay, then we got the big reveal of Season 7, and it appears to be Witch Doctor season, folks. So borrowed powers are back, right? We didn't have season themes basically for seasons 4 and 5. Season 1, we had a borrowed power season. We had those malignant ring powers, right? The malignant hearts you put on the rings. Then season 2, we had the blood powers, another borrowed power mechanic. Season 3, we had the seneschal as a form of borrowed power. Some people didn't consider that because it was like not on ourselves, but on a pet, and some people didn't like that. I thought it was cool. Seasons 4 and 5, no borrowed power mechanic, basically no season theme altogether. Now the season 7 and season 6 as well, no borrowed power mechanic. Season 7 now is basically you take the template of the Season of Blood, right? Where you had these blood powers that you can get. Well, now we're going to have witch powers that we can get. And they've also kind of brought in Season 1. It's almost like a Season 2 and Season 1 combined, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself because I'm excited here. So there's a new type of enemy. They're called the Head Rotten. When you kill the Head Rotten, you get your seasonal resource. You use this resource, you cash it in to get and upgrade your witch powers. So now if you go to the Tree of Whispers, and by the way, the Tree of Whispers area is going to be completely redone. There's going to be new vendors there to make it more into a town hub. The layout's going to be changed to make it more ergonomic. And there's now going to be 3 altars. And these are altars where you can give that resource that you have gotten by killing the Head Rotten. You make an offering at these altars to gain and or upgrade your witch powers. Equipping your witchcrafts will be straightforward. You can have a total of 5 normal witchcrafts equipped and 1 unique witchcraft. And all these powers seem to be based on Witch Doctor powers. We see Poison Frog, we see Fire Bats, we even see Pyreneedo. We're also going to have a reputation track this season, as we've had for the past few seasons now. It's been a pretty a well-received thing. And they are returning the Resplendent Spark at the end of the reputation track because people like that and missed it, so that's great. Now, to advance the reputation track, you got to complete Whispers. This is a different way of advancing a reputation track. Overall, there's a big theme around the Tree of Whispers and witches and swamps. For the season, at certain ranks in the reputation track, you will unlock new witchcrafts. That'll give you new things to learn at the altars. And there's also going to be some altars, I guess some witchcraft powers that you can only learn by finding them in the world. They're going to be hidden throughout Sanctuary. I guess they're all going to be found on PTR. I don't know if they're going to move them after, but they're going to be hidden in dungeons or different places of the world, and you got to go get them physically in the world. Overall, there's over 20 witch powers, and it seems some of these powers have an aura tag. So while we didn't see any examples of auras, I don't think, presumably some of them are going to be auras of some kind. I know people have been missing aura gameplay. We had it in D2 and D3. No auras yet in D4. This could be a way of testing them out. Probably ahead of making the Paladin type class for expansion 2. But yeah, we see that Pyreneedo, the unique witch power, will trigger if you cast a Hex and an Aura at the same time. Now, in addition to that, we're also going to have a new Blood Tide type activity called Headhunts. So similar to Helltide, this is going to be a subzone takeover type of event. So it's going to pop up on the map. You got to go to that area. And within a headhunt, there's going to be all kinds of new whispers, as well as some old whispers. So that's going to tie into completing our season journey. Sorry, our seasonal reputation track. And completing whispers has a chance of summoning a head rotten boss. And killing a head rotten boss is going to get you a special doodad, and you're going to use that special doodad to turn that in, and as a reward, you're basically going to get the Season 1 implemented mechanic, which is some kind of a gem. They call them occult gems. So these can only be placed inside jewelry sockets. So they do not compete with rune words. They also don't compete with regular gems because they're going to give us by default armor and all resist, because they want these occult gems to just always be better than other gems that we would put in jewelry. We went through the same issue in Season 1 where, oh, well, we got these malignant hearts, but like, is it worth sacrificing this, the armor that we would get by putting a skull in order to get this? So they had actually gone through some revisions where they hotfixed or updated with a patch the malignant hearts that we got in the past to add armor. Now we're getting it straight away. Now, occult gems are only for this season. When the season ends, they will disappear. They will not transfer into Eternal. They have their own powers. They also seem to be tied to the tags of auras and hexes related to the witch powers. Now, one problem that we were running into quite a bit while playing the game and completing whispers, your whisper track fills up, you're in a group, and it's like, okay guys, hold on, I gotta go turn in my whispers, we're out of sync with our whispers, and it's like, well, we're not waiting for you, we're doing this, or whatever, right? It's just kind of disruptive to general gameplay flow to have to, how quickly we would fill up on whispers and have to go to the tree of whispers to turn in. Well, now, within those new seasonal zones, there's going to be some kind of a raven that spawns. The raven of the tree will spawn in headhunt zones, so if your whisper track is full, then you can just go over to the raven of the tree to turn in the whisper without having to go all the way back to the tree of whispers. So if you're, doing the headhunt zone with your friends, presumably you're in there, you're completing the whispers in there, you can just stay in the zone, run a little bit over to the tree, you're not going to miss any drops, you're not going to miss anything. Great quality of life there. They're also adding ancestral caches as potential whisper cache rewards. So low chance to get an ancestral cache, and if you get one, that's going to have a guaranteed ancestral item in it. Now that's all the new content. Outside of that, we're getting a lot of quality life stuff, including a feature that has been requested and demanded since launch, basically. So first off, they just reminded us that Paragon migration is a thing. So when Season 6 ends, all of the XP, all the Paragon XP that we got is going to be added to our Eternal Realm XP, and this is going to keep happening season over season. So even if you never get to Paragon 300 in one season, over the course of a couple seasons, your Eternal character will reach Paragon 300 and therefore unlock the special cosmetics. Now, big update on unique items. If a unique item rolls as a greater affix, then its unique power will have its floor, as in the lowest roll that it can get, impacted by how many greater affixes the item has. The more greater affixes, the higher the floor, therefore the less likely you are to have a bad unique item roll. At 4 greater affixes, you are not guaranteed 100%, but you have a substantially high roll on that unique. I think this is a fantastic change. They said it's going to be nearly impossible to get a 4 GA unique with a bad unique roll. Similarly, ancestral legendaries, it sounds like if a legendary rolls as ancestral, its legendary power will now only roll within the range of the ancestral range that goes above and beyond the normal range. So again, if I interpreted this correctly, a legendary power normally rolls from like 1 to 16 on a range of 1 to 16, and then ancestral adds an extra 5 all the way up to 21. The ancestral rolls will now always only be 17 through 21. Another great change to being able to max out our codex and get upgrades there. And they're also, across all torments, just going to make more ancestral items drop. Then, very exciting thing with gem fragments. First off, fewer gem fragments are going to drop across the board, but they're also giving us a gem fragment sync. I've been asking for this. I'm super happy. Now you can craft random jewelry, rings and amulets, legendary jewelry, with your extra gem fragments. Another big quality of life thing, your class quests will now operate like Altars of Lilith. As in, once you have done a class quest one time on a class, then if you make another character of that class ever, you'll never again have to repeat the class quest. Once you reach that minimum level, be it 15 or 30, the level at which the class quest unlocks, you're just going to automatically have unlocked your class power. Now, you can still choose to do the class quest, and they said there's some big reward attached to it, but you no longer have to unlock your class power. But now, the pièce de résistance, the biggest thing that everyone's been asking for, Armory is coming with Season 7. This allows you to save, load, and name, I think it's up to 5 builds. Each character gets one, so these Armory loadouts are character-bound. Changing between loadout slots with different Paragon boards does not cost gold. And the Armory can be accessed basically in all major towns. You can do it in the Citadel, the Tree of Whispers, even in the training area. Now, this is not a storage place for equipment. Any equipment that you have saved in your build is going to get automatically favorited, so you can't accidentally delete it, and it's going to have an extra icon showing it is part of a build. So you're going to put these items in your stash, and if you're looking through the items in your stash and wondering, oh, is this used in any builds? Well, there's going to be an icon on it if it is. Very hyped for the Armory. So again, all of this is going to be available when the 2.1 PTR launches on the 3rd of December. New to the PTR, they're going to give us the ability to account copy In the past, they would make like a copy of our characters from like weeks before PTR. Now, on demand, there will be a button anytime you want. It's going to take a snapshot of your current live server account and bring that into PTR. There's also going to be new boost options where you can get all the new Season 7 unique items, all the witchcraft powers, all the witchcraft progression items. Not exactly sure how long PTR is going to last. I heard someone say until the 10th of December. That'd give us a week. A little tight. But all PTR content will be available as of day 1. So that wraps up everything, folks. Again, I think this is probably going to be the best season ever. It has the potential to be. It has the most stuff in it. You know, I was really worried about Season 7. Season 6 was kind of disappointing, and I'm like, okay, Season 7 needs to be a banger, and it looks like they might be delivering here. We'll find out in a couple weeks. But what do you folks think? Does Season 7 make you hype? Sound off in the comments. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my supporters for making these videos possible. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to join Rhykkers Raiders for more Diablo content.